The intertwined history of Russia and Ukraine stretches back over a millennium to the emergence of Kievan Rus. This medieval East Slavic state, flourishing from the 9th to the mid-13th centuries, laid the groundwork for both nations' cultural and political identities. Centered on the Dnieper River and encompassing present-day Ukraine, Belarus and parts of Russia, Kievan Rus fostered a shared heritage of language, religion and law. From the outset, Kievan Rus was a decentralized entity, a loose federation of principalities often vying for power. While the Grand Prince of Kiev held nominal authority, regional princes asserted their autonomy. The Mongol invasion in the 13th century dealt a final blow, shattering the unity of the East Slavic world and setting the stage for divergent historical trajectories. For Russia, it represents the foundational moment of its statehood, the wellspring from which its imperial ambitions later flowed. Ukraine views Kievan Rus as a testament to its own distinct historical path, a period of independent statehood predating the emergence of a centralized Russian state. Following the disintegration of Kievan Rus, Ukrainian lands became caught in the throes of shifting empires. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, the Ottoman Empire, and the burgeoning Russian Empire all exerted their influence over the region. For centuries, Ukrainian identity was forged in the crucible of foreign rule, as its people navigated the complexities of multiple allegiances. The rise of the Russian Empire in the 17th and 18th centuries proved particularly consequential for Ukraine. Through a series of wars and treaties, Russia gradually absorbed Ukrainian territories, culminating in the annexation of Crimea in 1783. Tsarist authorities sought to suppress Ukrainian national consciousness, promoting instead a policy of Russification. The Soviet era witnessed a paradoxical duality in Russia-Ukraine relations. Joseph Stalin's brutal policies of collectivization and forced famine known as the Holodomor devastated Ukraine in the 1930s, killing millions. Throughout the Soviet period, Ukrainian national aspirations remained subordinate to the dictates of Moscow. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 ushered in a new chapter for both Russia and Ukraine. After decades of Soviet rule, Ukraine declared its independence following an overwhelming referendum. This momentous occasion marked the culmination of a long and arduous struggle for national liberation. However, the transition to independence proved far from seamless. Despite these challenges, Ukraine embarked on an ambitious path of democratic reforms and economic liberalization. These aspirations were met with increasing resistance from Moscow, which viewed Ukraine's westward drift as a threat to its own security and geopolitical interests. The year 2004 marked a pivotal moment in Ukraine's post-independence trajectory with the eruption of the Orange Revolution. This wave of mass protests, sparked by a fraudulent presidential election, shook the country to its core. Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians clad in orange demanded free and fair elections and a break from the corrupt practices of the old guard. At the heart of the Orange Revolution lay a fundamental clash of visions for Ukraine's future. The protests, though largely peaceful, exposed the deep societal fissures that ran through Ukrainian society. The Orange Revolution ultimately succeeded in forcing a rerun of the presidential election, which Viktor Yushchenko, the pro-Western candidate, won. This victory, hailed as a triumph for democracy, sent shockwaves through Moscow. The Orange Revolution demonstrated the Ukrainian people's desire for a different path, one that diverged from the authoritarian model embraced by Russia. The events of 2014 cast a long shadow over Ukraine, marking a turning point in its relationship with Russia. Following months of protests in Kiev, known as the Euromaidan, then-President Viktor Yanukovych fled to Russia, and a new pro-Western government came to power. Russia, denouncing the change in government as a coup d'état, responded with a series of swift and calculated actions. In February 2014, Russian troops seized control of the Crimean Peninsula. A hastily organized referendum, deemed illegitimate by the international community, paved the way for Russia's annexation of Crimea. Concurrent with the annexation of Crimea, Russia also fomented separatist unrest in eastern Ukraine's Donbas region. The war in Donbas, characterized by trench warfare and a devastating toll on civilian lives, has claimed the lives of thousands and displaced millions more. The world watched in horror as Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022. This unprovoked act of aggression shattered the peace that had prevailed in Europe since the end of the Cold War. Russian President Vladimir Putin's stated goals of demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine sent shockwaves through the international system. In Ukraine, the human toll has been catastrophic. Thousands of civilians have been killed, cities have been reduced to rubble, and millions have been displaced from their homes. The international community responded to Russia's aggression with unprecedented unity and resolve. NATO, revitalized by a renewed sense of purpose, bolstered its military presence in Eastern Europe. The war in Ukraine has also triggered a global energy crisis, a refugee crisis, and a food crisis, with ripple effects felt far beyond the borders of the conflict zone. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, its ultimate outcome remains uncertain. What is certain, however, is that the conflict has already had a profound impact on the international order. Despite the immense challenges it faces, Ukraine has demonstrated remarkable resilience and determination. Its people have shown extraordinary courage and unity, rallying behind their government and taking up arms to defend their homeland. The Ukrainian military, outgunned and outmanned, has nonetheless inflicted heavy losses on Russian forces. The path to peace in Ukraine remains elusive. The international community must continue to support Ukraine, providing it with the military, economic, and humanitarian assistance it needs. The future of Ukraine and indeed the future of Europe hangs in the balance.